Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's insights on webinar on Science of Wellbeing. Thank you so much for taking time today. We will have about 30 minutes of time with Dr. Ben, who is going to be walking us through on Science of Wellbeing. And it's really designed to help you reduce stress, improve your physical vitality, and more importantly, better connect with others. What Dr. Ben is going to be doing is he's going to be walking us through the 4 pillars, and subsequently we will take questions towards the end of the session. Let me, without further ado, because we're 2:08 right now, Dr. Ben, who is a partner with MIM with us, he is the CEO of globally recognized Genos International, and we do a lot of our bespoke emotional intelligence programs with Genos International. Dr. Ben is an experienced consultant, and his expertise is very much in sales growth, talent development, particularly within professional services, banking and finance, pharmaceutical, together with technology and hospitality. So without further ado, Dr. Ben, I'm going to be handing over the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Stella, and good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, just let me acknowledge 55 years. Well, that's quite an achievement. I loved watching that video, and in particular, seeing more and more equality and gender diversity coming through as you watched it. It was lovely to literally see that evolution there. Welcome to you all, 150 odd people here from all corners of the globe. I think I noticed from Switzerland to KL to Sydney. I think that pretty much covers just about everything, and it's great to have you here. Because there's so many of us today, I really would like to encourage you to put your comments, your perspectives, your questions into the chat box. Stella and her team are here with us today to monitor that chat box, and they're going to bring a few pieces of it out at various points in the webinar. I hope you enjoy this session on the science of wellbeing. Indeed, if you look into the science of wellbeing, you'll see that firstly, there's an enormous body of research that's been done on our wellbeing, and from that research has emerged a great list of things that we can all do to enhance our wellbeing. And interestingly, that list falls into 4 buckets that we're going to look at today, or 4 pillars, as Stella mentioned to you just before. The first is, of course, our mental and emotional health and well-being, and we're going to have a look at some strategies that we can use to improve the way we think and the way we feel. The next big interrelated area of our well-being, of course, is our physical health, and we're going to dive into the typical physical things that you're probably thinking of already as I mentioned that to you. The third pillar of our well-being, of course, is our social well-being, the quality of our interactions with each other and with those people who are close to us. And finally, our environmental well-being, and I'm going to share some strategies in that area with you today as well. As we go through and I share strategies in each of these areas, I want you to be thinking about new things that you might be able to either stop or start doing to get that little boost and that little lift in your well-being. As interest rates go up and inflation rises, there's a lot of pressure on us all at the moment, cost of living pressure, and that can create all sorts of anxiety and concern and worry. And to balance that, there's no better time to be thinking about our own well-being and the well-being of those we look after, both at home and at work. So I hope you enjoy this webinar today, and please jump into the chat box at any time, throw in some comments and some questions as we go through. The first thing I'll leave you with before we go any further is that with all these pillars, they're all important. Working in all of them will improve your well-being, but it's our social well-being that's the single most important. If you look into the research on centenarians, those who make it to 100, people who live a long and healthy life, the research has undoubtedly shown that the quality of how we connect with each other, how we communicate with each other, how we are with each other, far outweighs and predicts our mental health and well-being, our happiness and our longevity. And so that's the single most important one to be thinking about as we go through today. The broader Science of Wellbeing program that MIM are going to bring to you does three essential things. The first thing it does is it gives people a quiz and gets people thinking about the sorts of things they're already doing to boost their well-being. And the reason that the bigger program that we're giving you a synopsis of today does that is because if you want to improve your well-being, of course, you can't just do more of the same. And so we will invite you today as well in our summary to think about the things you're already doing and to add or subtract, if you like, from that, to add new things and maybe to subtract unhealthy habits by way of example. We're going to show you the range of well-boosting techniques, and all along the way, I'd like you to take notes with paper and pen so that at the end in the little action plan time that I give you, you've got something new you might be able to take away from our workshop today. Indeed, that's where I want to bring us all to identify something new we could either stop or start doing to enhance our well-being. Okay, so our first pillar, thinking strategies, these really improve our mental and emotional health and well-being. And if you look into this area, the sorts of things that we can all engage in to improve our well-being include things like creating boundaries. A boundary is something you define typically around an unhealthy habit or an unhealthy person. And in the broader program, we dive into this in quite some detail. But let me simplify it for our summary today. You might draw a line in the sand, a boundary around your phone, for example. Looking at your phone all the way up until when you go to bed actually is very disruptive for your sleep. And so if you were defining a boundary around that, it might be simply as saying to yourself, I won't look at my phone for at least an hour before I go to bed. If at work you have what I call a time gobbler, somebody who just, as soon as you spark up the conversation with them, you've lost half an hour you didn't have at work. You might put a boundary around that. If you haven't thought about boundaries before, Google the search term creating boundaries. There's heaps of information about it on the internet, or come to the broader program where we really deep dive into it. But coming back to that time gobbler, if you were to create a boundary, the way I do it, I've got one in my workplace, is as soon as the conversation starts, I say, oh, I've got 5 minutes right now, but in 5 minutes I'll have to go. Let's go. What is it that you wanted to bring up with me? That's creating a boundary on the spot in the moment with that time gobbler at work. You could create boundaries around unhealthy habits like looking at your phone, having coffee too much, and around people. The other thing that's really great for our mental health and well-being, of course, is learning new things. The brain is very plastic. You can grow, if you like, parts of the brain. If you engage in mindfulness, for example, that has been shown to improve areas of the brain associated with concentration, attention, and memory. But learning anything new is actually creates those same new neural pathways, and that's very healthy for your brain. At the moment, I'm learning how to play the ukulele, and I'm really enjoying it. I sit down with my partner after dinner each night, and we try and learn one new song a night and build up from there. Gratitude reflections and thankfulness. If you're noticing that you're spiraling down a little bit, these cost of living pressures are really unbalancing your emotional seesaw, for want of a better word, stopping and taking some time to reflect and think about the things that are working in your life, the sorts of good things that you see happening around you, that can be a really great little exercise to do. And it only takes a habit of 2 or 3 minutes a day to stop and just journal and reflect on something that's actually gone quite well, or something that's worked well for you today. If you're a real do person, someone who's very task-oriented, sometimes stopping and reflecting and diarising a bit of think and reflection time works really well. Again, a little habit of 5 minutes at the end of the day to reflect on what you did and how it went, what you've got coming up in the next couple of days, what you need to prepare and get ready for. Great little habit to get into. Perspective taking. I know this is a big term. Again, if you're not familiar with it, I'd encourage you to Google it. Social media, Facebook, Snapchat, Insta, and all those sort of great applications that we like diving into sometimes, TikTok, all notice what we post, what we watch, what we share. And what do they all do? The algorithms behind them, of course, keep sending us more of the same. What that does over time, of course, is it narrows our perspective. It narrows our beliefs. It narrows our view of the world. So perspective taking is simply being intentional about deliberately engaging in things that are a bit new or a bit different to your current system of views and beliefs. So, for example, if you're quite politically conservative and you watch conservative news channels, you might engage in some quite progressive news channels, or vice versa. But deliberately engaging a colleague or a newspaper or a news article, sorry about that, everyone, that's a little bit different from what you would normally do can be really healthy to get those perspectives. And then finally, breaking problems down into smaller parts. Again, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you solve a big problem? By chunking it down into smaller parts. So that's the first pillar, everyone. There's lots more things that you can put in it, but I hope that that perhaps got you thinking about something new in this area you might be able to do more of or to boost your well-being. If you have thought of something you'd like to mention, please jump into the chat box and do so. While you're thinking about that and doing that, I'm going to bring Stella in and ask her for a comment. Stella, what did we get you thinking about here as you were watching the thinking strategies?
Well, I think you've actually brought together a lot of areas that we should be reflecting. I mean, as an individual myself, we go around running through the day, trying to finish all the tasks, and many times, right, we almost get into a burnout stage. So for me, right, I love the part on creating boundaries, because creating boundaries, I think, really helps you to give you more time to work on what you want to do as well and what you want to accomplish. I like the other part, Dr. Ben, on perspective taking as well. That's something new. I don't believe I've come across that, but I'm certainly going to be taking this on, because it's about being intentional and being present, right? And I think that's very important for me. So that's definitely something I love from this barrier here, from this thinking area.
Excellent. Thank you, Stella. And a great comment come in through the chat box. Can mindfulness help with well-being? Yes, absolutely. And you could probably put mindfulness in all the 4 pillars that we're going to look at today. You'll notice that I've put it in the physical pillar, and I've put it there simply because the research has shown that the more in mindfulness you engage in, not only the better do you feel and the more self-awareness you tend to bring to yourself, but you lay those new neural pathways down around concentration and attention, and that's why it's so good for us. Thank you for that wonderful comment, and keep those comments coming, everyone. Let's go to our second pillar, the relationship pillar. As I was saying before, the quality of our relationships is the single biggest predictor of our health and our happiness. So a very important bucket for us all. One of the things that we can do with our close personal relationships is to set some actions and some goals to improve those relationships. I like to do this with what I call a relationship circles activity. You draw circles that represent the important areas or relationships of your life. For example, I'm a dad. One of my circles is father, and I have my 3 kids in that circle. I've put their names there. Another important circle is partner, and I've got my partner Georgia in that particular circle. Another circle for me, and the label I've given it, is siblings, and I've got my brothers and sisters in there, and so on down. So yeah, if you're going to do a relationship circles activity, you simply draw circles, you give them an appropriate label, and you put people in there. I like doing this because it's a very practical way of thinking intentionally about a person and what you might do. So for example, recently I've decided to work on the relationship I have with my partner. That relationship's pretty healthy anyway, but nonetheless, in the spirit of continuous improvement, I decided, right, for the next 3 months, George is going to be my focus. And I sat back and asked myself, right, what can I do to improve my relationship with Georgia? Her birthday was coming up, and the ukulele idea came to mind. So I went and bought 2 ukuleles and gave them both to her for her birthday, and said to her, for the next 3 months, I'd love to sit down after dinner with you and let's learn the ukulele together. That's the thing I decided to do to improve our relationship. Very small little things like this, the 1%ers on our close personal relationships, really take them to the next level. The next month of the quarter, I said to Georgia, what could I do to be a better partner for you? And she went back and thought about that and said to me, I'd like you to put your phone into airplane mode when you finish your work for the day so that you can be a little bit more present and connected with me and the kids. And so I've been doing that. Now, you might feel the connection between that relationship strategy and thinking strategy boundaries. In fact, putting my phone into airplane mode when my workday is finished is a boundary that Georgia gave to me as a way of helping me be a little bit more present and connected with her and the kids. So that's relationship improvement, goal settings and actions. Chris, I see your comment in the chat box and we'll come to that in a moment. Thank you for that great comment. How do you lean into conflict and difficult conversations? If you are a bit conflict avoidant and you don't have authentic dialogue with those around you that you really should, I'm thinking about a certain sister-in-law of mine that I could probably be a little bit more authentic with. Learning the art of difficult conversations is something that's really useful. Crucial Conversations, the book, is a really great starting place if you like. Planning and being a little bit more intentional in your relationships can also be very healthy. Just taking a minute, for example, to think about something interesting you might say, a question you might ask, or how you might get in the right mood and emotion for the interaction that you're about to have with someone. Planning and being more intentional only takes a few moments. Again, it's a great habit to be in. I just ask myself sometimes when I'm having those important meetings, okay, how am I going to be really present and connected with this person? Indeed, being more emotionally mindful of self and others is something else that we can all do. I like to take 6 deep breaths before important meetings to help me just engage my parasympathetic nervous system and be more present and connected with the people that I'm meeting with. So there's some examples of relationship-oriented strategies. And Stella, I see we've got some comments that have come into the chat box, so I might address those if that's all right with you.
Yes, I think that's right. Let's spend more time because we really would like, we've created this platform and we encourage all participants to use this platform to share what your thoughts are or what are the areas you are faced with, because we've got Dr. Ben Palmer here for the next 20 minutes. So let's start with the first one, Dr. Ben, from Chris.
Chris asks, how to recover from a traumatizing event like project failure that was out of personal control after having spent a lot of time and effort, perhaps going from disappointment to even depression. Chris, thank you for the lovely vulnerability and what you've put there. My advice on things like that is to start small, to be action-oriented and future-focused. That's not to ignore the emotion of the upsetting event. It's good to even dwell in that for a bit, but you have to move on. And moving on means being action-focused, future-oriented, and starting small. So, for example, if you didn't have a mindfulness practice, starting small might mean doing 10 minutes of mindfulness each day to get that 1% uplift in your well-being. Another thing that you could do is if you don't exercise very much or you don't walk, going for a 45-minute walk every day, something that's very easy to do if you're physically capable of walking, is very good for your emotional and mental health. When you walk, you engage in something called self-generated optic flow. You're literally walking past, the world's going past your eyes. That's been shown to dampen the impact of the unpleasant emotions coming from the amygdala and the emotional centers of the brain, and it's been shown to calm them down. So, Chris, I hope that's given you something to think about, but starting small, being future-focused and action-oriented, there's no magic pill, but trying to put 1 or 2 new healthy habits into your daily routine is perhaps the place to go. Okay, Vincent says you need both time and effort to continuously maintain a balance between the circles. Where do you get that time? Great question. Vincent, what I tend to do is just focus on one circle, one person for the quarter, and I make it very simple and practical little things that you can do, because like perhaps you're suggesting, my cup's already full And so I don't like long laundry lists of things to do. Okay, got time for one more. Dr. Ben, talking about learning new things in the context of office or work, it might be possible to lead to multitasking, as the staff perhaps will be able to master on that particular new thing. Multitasking sometimes could lead to stress. What's your comment on that? Yes, I don't like multitasking. I think it does lead to stress. Not for everyone. Wellbeing is like the fingerprints on our hands. We all have it, but it's all different to us. And I think what you're reminding me of there is the importance of self-awareness around your well-being, knowing what gives you stress and what takes it away, and engaging in that. So rather than multitasking, for example, creating a list of tasks to do and working methodically through that list, I know is something that for a lot of people who don't like multitasking takes stress away and helps them better negotiate with others what's going on to manage workloads. And that's a really great thinking strategy. Something too, to link up thinking strategies with relationship strategies, is thankfulness. Like gratitude reflections, thankfulness helps us think about positive things that are happening around us. But unlike gratitude reflections that we tend to do more personally in a diary, of course, thankfulness is something that you express to someone. And when you do so, you build that connection and that relationship. It only takes 2 minutes a day, like brushing your teeth, which is why I put this photo up here, to engage in thankfulness. 1 minute to do today's, if you like, and 1 minute to conceptualize tomorrow's. Today, I went into the local greengrocer where I buy my fruit and veggies. I haven't expressed thankfulness to the owner for many months, and I went up to the owner because he happened to be there today, and I said to this person, again, I just wanted to say thank you for the wonderful shop and the wonderful fruit and vegetables that you have here and your service that you provide in community. Sometimes we walk in and out of here without thinking about the value that having a great fruit and veggie shop really means to us in a community. So I just wanted to say thank you again. Put a big smile on that person's face, put a smile on my face. Didn't take long to do. The key to thankfulness is to be specific, to make it personalized so that it is meaningful. Okay. Remember, keep your comments and questions coming, everyone. Our third pillar of wellbeing, environmental wellbeing. Big business is clued on to this, which is why they create lovely office environments. It's why department stores spend a lot of time on the way their store smells, the way their store looks, and the way their store is laid out. Why? Because different environments create different feels, and different feels create different behavior. That nice scent, that relaxing music, that beautiful store layout is all designed to put you in a good mood and open up yourself to bigger things. And that, of course, relates to buying behavior, which is why big business do it. We, of course, can tap into that science and those practical things as well and think about wonderful things that we can do in our environment for each other. Indeed, stopping and thinking about little rituals and routines that you can engage in that are good for your mental health and well-being. It might be as simple as a walk that you do or a coffee that you get from a particular store. Little rituals and routines out in that world and in our environment can be really good for us. Indeed, stopping and thinking and putting a list down of 5 things that you love doing that really bring peace and happiness to you, and then asking yourself, okay, how do I engage a little bit more in those things? That can be a great environmental strategy to engage in. And indeed, in the broader program that we do around this concept, we get people to come up with an ideal day, but one that's realistic, one that you can do any day of the week. And that helps people really think about the sorts of things that they actually like doing that bring them positive emotions, and they engage in that more from doing that definitional work. Engaging in things that move you emotionally. Your emotional system, like any other system in the body, can be stretched, exercised, regulated, if you like, intentionally through the things we do. It might be looking through old photos, playing a particular song that was played at your wedding, for example, a particular scent that you like. There are many things that move us emotionally, and we can intentionally engage in those things. I love watching sometimes comedies to get a laugh, romantic films, sometimes to have a cry. And I don't know about you, but I love the talent shows. There's something about the talent shows that often move me to tears. I think I love achievement and seeing people have a go. What moves you emotionally? Have a think about that. When was the last time you deliberately engaged your emotional system? I like watching thrillers if I want to engage myself in a bit of fear and a bit of concern, if you like. It's a really great way of getting to know your emotions and to deliberately put them on, if you like, so that you learn more about them and how to regulate them. Burning essential oils or scents, a bit of peppermint if you want more concentration and attention, a bit of lavender if you want that more relaxed feel. Playing music, of course, music's very emotive and brings on different things. And indoor plants. Did you know that if you work with an indoor plant behind you, you will have better concentration and attention? If you have kids who are going to school, if they study for exams with indoor plants in the room, they can't be fake, they need to be real. Real indoor plants have been shown to have a positive effect on memory and concentration and attention, and kids have been shown to actually do better on exams when they study with indoor plants in there. Great. So, Stella, we've got another list of things up here and a few comments in the chat box. I might pause here and just bring you in for a reflection or something you'd like to draw out from this discussion.
Yes, in fact, Dr. Ben, I love that last one because it really caught my attention about indoor plants. I've been thinking a lot about should I have indoor plants in my home? And now you've just made it so clear for me that having an indoor plant, and should be a real one, should not be a fake one, is something that I'm definitely going to be looking at. I think for many of us in this session here, we would resonate a lot to routines and rituals. And I just reflecting back, I think it's important to make sure that we take time for ourselves, and especially going out for that walk. I have found that very useful after sitting behind the laptop and running through your whole list of action to do. It's nice to actually get out and do that walk, because you suddenly realize such a breath of fresh air makes a difference. So I'm going to quickly jump into some of those questions. We've got some coming in here, Dr. Ben. We've got one from Chris. How to create a gratitude culture if you're working in a toxic culture?
I think that's a great question. Sometimes you can control and influence culture, and sometimes you can't. I would start by thinking about someone who is a trusted colleague, who you think has your well-being in mind, and mentioning this to them and saying, why don't we start up a little gratitude club between the two of us? This notion of starting small and building out is the best way to overcome something like that. If you're feeling that the culture is toxic and there's no gratitude there, you can be guaranteed that there will be other people around you who might be thinking the same thing. So picking somebody out, someone you can trust, someone you have a good relationship with, and going to them and saying, hey, this is a bit of a toxic situation. Why don't we get together once a week and just share 2 or 3 things that we're really grateful for? You never know, it might get a bit of interest from others, and 2 might become 3, 4, 5, and the little club that you have around gratitude might indeed increase. But starting small and working out again is the best way to tackle that type of thing. Speaking of rituals and routines, Stella, someone the other day said to me, what's a healthy ritual and routine to have at work? And I said to them, well, I think in this task-oriented world that we're in today, we forget to have lunch with each other. So a little healthy ritual and routine can be saying 1 day a week, 2 days a week, let's stop and go out for lunch together and take a proper hour or proper 45 minutes to have lunch with each other somewhere. Great little ritual and routine. It's good for your well-being, good for your relationships with your colleagues at work, brings 2 pieces together, particularly if you go somewhere on a walk to the place that you're going to eat.
I think that's a wonderful one. Here we would sometimes be saying, well, let's catch up for a quick cup of coffee.
Yeah.
or even breakfast, for instance. Okay, so we're moving on to another point here. Bella
Yes.
has indicated here, indeed, thank you for the question. As per mentioned, and Dr. Ben, your answer draw my attention about taking small steps towards to overcome the issues. So if the step, for example, to migrate outside the comfort zone, migrate life and business outside country to be considered small or big step?
That sounds like a big step to me.
Very
But,
big step.
sometimes big steps are necessary. I'll share something there that might resonate a little bit. I wanted to lose some weight a few years ago. And one of the things that I decided to do was to ride my bike to work every day to help get some exercise in. This is pre-COVID, of course, when we used to go to offices. And so what I found was that as soon as it was a bit cold or a bit wet, I didn't ride my bike to work, I drove the car. So the big step I took in order to get more into the habit of riding my bike to work so that I would lose the weight is I sold the car. Because once the car wasn't there, I was left with two choices: ride the bike or catch public transport. And come rain, hail or shine, I can tell you, I was on that bike every day. Another great comment that's here, and I want to move on because we've got one more area to look at. Akmal says, Dr. Palmer, would EQ be a big part in maintaining a good, healthy social relationship and well-being? Absolutely. I didn't deep dive into that, but of course, that's my background. Thank you for that comment, Akmal. Of course, improving your self-awareness, your empathy, improving your capacity to positively influence the way others feel is all part of your EQ and all great strategies for improving how you connect and how you communicate with others. Okay, our final area, of course, the physical area. This will, of course, probably be the one you have most strategies in already, but sometimes not. First cab off the rank, sleeping better. Okay, sleep, so important for our emotional and mental health and our longevity. There could be a connection between poor sleep and Alzheimer's and dementia later in life. So first thing to think about is, what's that optimal level of sleep that you need? That sort of amount of sleep where you easily throw off the bed sheets and feel ready for the day rather than running for the cup of tea or coffee. And then to ask yourself, how many nights of the week am I actually getting that amount of sleep? And again, taking small steps towards getting more nights of the week where you're sleeping better can be something really valuable to do. Now, how do you get better sleep? Google it. It's an enormous amount of research on sleep, huge number of strategies that you can engage in to improve your sleep, and Google is your friend there for more strategies, or come to our bigger workshop, of course, where we deep dive into it. These two substances play around with our central nervous system and our sleep. So drinking less alcohol and caffeine, no coffee after 2 p.m. is one rule, if you like, to think about that can be very good for your sleep, your overall health and well-being. Of course, eating more nutritious foods that are good for us, and exercising, doing something most days. 150 minutes of exercise per week is the current Australian guideline, at least. And that can involve, a 45-minute walk most days of the week that will get you there. The other thing about exercise, of course, is it is good to get into a full sweat, to do some cardio exercise as well. And so thinking about that. And then finally, mindfulness meditation. As I mentioned before, we could have put that in any one of the buckets, but I put it here because the physical benefits can be seen in the brain when you engage in a 10-minute mindfulness practice each day. Improving your sleep, diet, and exercise is best done if you have poor habits in that area through tiny habits, making small changes, and doing things daily. And these kind of books, I really like Tiny Habits and Atomic Habits as a way of deep diving in that area, everybody. Okay, time for our action plan. What were some of the key things, key insights or takeaways that you've got from this session? Is there something new that you might be able to either stop or start doing to boost your well-being? Stopping caffeine after 2 p.m, for example, starting doing a walk each day, or starting having lunch with a colleague one day a week for 45 minutes. I'm going to play a little piece of music. While that music's playing, I'd really like to encourage you just to answer those two questions for yourself on a piece of paper. Thanks, everyone. Okay, thank you everyone for those wonderful positive comments that you've been putting into the chat box. I really appreciate them. I know Stella would really like you to engage in a little bit of feedback for us before you leave. Stella, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ben. Just looking at the chats that are coming through, it really tells us that the science of well-being is so important in today's in everyone's life. As I go through it, everyone is bogged down with so many things, and I think just taking those small steps, because all of us are challenged with all kinds of different issues. And I think what you've just given us, the 4 pillars, is really good, because we can actually dissect and just look at the more essential ones that are going to bring us the mindfulness and the peace that we really need to be able to have good well-being, in making sure that we not only look after ourselves, but also our family, have time for our family and our loved ones. And I think just from this, I love the stop and the start, because we never have time to look at what we should stop or what we should start with. But having said that, one thing for sure is it's definitely high on the list. It's actually exercise. Making sure no matter how busy you are, you either start exercise in the morning or at least in the evening. Stopping coffee at 2 p.m. as what I see here by Chua is also very good, because that's something that I've also decided to stop. So, Dr. Ben, looking at what we see in the chat, it's really nice to get fantastic feedback coming on from everyone. I am just quickly browsing through to see if there is any other questions, because there's like about 27 messages coming through here. I just want to ask everyone to just try to complete the evaluation. Today's preview is actually on MIM Learning Insights. It's a program that MIM will be sharing in the next week. We will be running this program, and this will consist of a 2-day program. It has got 4 modules, and the first module, just very briefly, is going to be covering the science of improving well-being. So this is where you'll explore the science of emotions and how to use self-awareness in the improvement of well-being. Module 2 is going to be talking about improving well-being with physical and environmental strategies. So there'll be techniques about how you get around to sleeping, diet, exercise, and how to structure your well-being day to reduce stress and improve mood and emotions, which is so important today. Module 3 is going to be talking about improving well-being with thinking strategies. And I think this is where you're looking at where Dr. Ben highlighted about creating and improving boundaries. How do you shift from a reaction to consider responses with emotional agility techniques? And the final module is going to talk about improving well-being with social strategies. And this, Dr. Ben, I remember you saying, is the most important one because it is about the connecting, it's about the connection and the communication. And it also looks at giving you a long life. So that caught my attention. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are keen to want to know more, we will be in touch with you with program details. Okay, so Dr. Ben, over to you. Do you have anything else you wish to say before we end the call?
No, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's come. I hope you have a lovely rest of your afternoon and a great day tomorrow. And as Stella was saying, today's been the summary of the book, if you like. Come along to the program where we deep dive into each of those 4 areas. There's a lot of depth to them. Come along and create some boundaries for yourself. Really take some time for yourself to improve a relationship, to come up with a physical plan, and of course a plan around the environment. They're the outcomes that you'll get from coming to the broader program with MIM. I have to go now. I have to go and pick up my kids from soccer training. Thanks everyone. Have a great
Thank you,
afternoon.
everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon and we'll be in touch. See you then. Bye.